It's time for the next week. First week of playoffs, second week of playoffs, last week before playoffs. It doesn't matter. It's week 21 of the NBA season. It's Yahoo Matchup 19. It is, of course, Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and when the world gets bad enough, the good go crazy, but the smart, they go bad. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Also, check out LockedOnDaily.com, and you can find the best newsletter for your favorite NBA team. That is at LockedOnDaily.com. Sign up for free over there. And also double bang over here. Video, audio, do both. Leave your comments, subscribe, share, blah, blah, blah. Again, we try to be dynamic. We try to move. We try to be a living, breathing show here. And as things adjust and change and the different portions of the season arrive, I adjust the way we do things. We're not going to be rigid. We're not going to be stiff in terms of what we do. So we are, again, there are 5 weeks left in the NBA regular season. There are 2 weeks left for some of your seasons. There are 3 weeks for some, 4 for others. So what we're going to do is we're going to look more focusing here, not necessarily on who's got 3 and 4 nights and who's the 6 and 9 nights and blah, blah. We're more going to be focusing here. Where are the back-to-backs? Like, how do we max out our games for different sort of setups? 3 moves, 4 moves, 7 moves. Now, it is impossible to cover every single option. And I just want to take this initial part of the show to talk about this, because I did tweet this out and I asked people to respond to a poll that I put out asking how many moves does your league have as a general rule, right? And I got the responses. I put 4 options. That's the most you can do on Twitter in terms of a poll. And we had 4 moves at 37%, 7 moves at 27%. That's the Yahoo and ESPN defaults. 5 moves, 20%, and 3 moves, 16%. Now, that's interesting, but a lot of people replied to that post. A lot, actually. It was a simple poll. I didn't expect people were going to reply to it as much. But a lot of people replied to it saying that, A, if there's too many moves, it's not as good, which, again, I think move limits, very restrictive move limits, are insane. I think it's actually ridiculous because it creates problems that lead to disengagement. And the problem with that is that if you end up getting a lot of injuries, you've got no way to replace it, so you get to a games played disadvantage and you get cooked. And then you go, well, what am I supposed to do? My guys are injured. You cannot recover from it. And I know that you'll say, well, if you have too many moves, you just stream every day, every slot. Not really, because, again, the solution to this is games cap. It's very easy. It's an easy solution. It sorts it out. It's done. It's the easiest solution you'll ever find, right? But what I also heard a lot of people replying with saying, oh, yeah, we have a season limit on the amount of moves. And I'll tell you right now, that should never be a thing. There's zero rationale for it. There is zero reason for it. And I know someone's going to say, we do it. It's actually really good. Because then it makes you think more about what your moves are. And you're going to be very careful about the moves that you make because you've only got a little bit of bullshit. Bullshit. Simple. Again, I want to do things when we play fantasy sports, where we play fantasy basketball, where we don't create disengagement. We don't turn people away. Having this idea of, like, you've got to be very specific with your moves, that's all well and good, and it's an extra layer of strategy, and you're the king, and you're the double onyx, and all that sort of stuff, right? But again, if someone gets dicked, and they cop 3 injuries at once, and they had a period early in the season where, in order for them to compete, they had a million injuries, they had to make moves, and now they get to the playoffs, and they can make 1 move, or they're fighting for the thing, and they just don't have anything left, it creates haves and have-nots. We're not talking about fantasy socialism here. We're not talking about making it equal for everyone with participation trophies, whatever insane, stupid debate you want to have about it. What we're talking about is just making the game more fun for more people, more engaging for longer periods of time. These limits, like, oh, we've got 40 moves for the season. Bro, get a better league. That's a ridiculous setting. I don't like the idea that fantasy basketball gets decided by streaming. I've been on record of saying that. But putting a limit like that, it creates chasms. It creates this larger striation in the value of teams, meaning teams give up earlier in the season. There are less competitive matchups throughout the year, which again is actually counterintuitive to what you want to do. You want more people being more competitive for as long as possible. So, and I know that if you are in a league and that is all you have known, you will say it is great. It is not. It is objectively not a good idea to have a cap on season-long moves. The cap you need are games played. Make as many moves as you want. That is the ideal way. That is how I run all of my leagues. Make as many moves as you want. If you are falling in a hole because of things out of your control, injuries, you should have mechanisms to be able to get back. 2 moves for a week, 40 moves for a season, 60 moves for a season, whatever, does not allow you to do that. And it is a bad idea that creates uncompetitive, striated leagues with disengagement faster than other leagues, and that is actually not debatable. And I know that some will want to debate it, but I assure you that that is a terrible way to set a league. There is no need for it. It tries to solve a problem, but creates more and doesn't actually even solve the problem. So I just wanted to make sure that was out there. We'll do more stuff in the off-season about settings, but that setting, horrendous, should not exist. Should never do season-long moves caps. And some of the limits on those moves, someone's going to say, what if you do 150? Just don't have one. There's no need to do it. Absolutely zero need. Have 1,000. Don't matter. You don't need one. Absolutely no. You never want to put a situation where you're creating the gap that makes it harder for more competitive matchups. We want more competitive matchups. That is the strength to a healthy game and a healthy league and a healthy competition. You don't want 3 teams who just cook everybody and everyone else gives up. Fight me. Respectfully. In the comments. All right. Let's talk about the schedule for the week. Because that's what we're here to do, obviously. What are we going to do first? We're going to talk about... I'm going to talk about the weekly schedule. Because this is a weird week, and I'll dub this week. It's Clippers week. This week is Clippers week. All right? And you'll ask, what do I mean by that? It means that the week is determined, a lot of it, by Clippers. And you'll see it. And a lot of learning stuff is through repetition and hearing the same thing in different ways. This is Clippers week. We have 12 games on Monday. That is not a streamable day under nearly any circumstance. We have 4 on Tuesday. We have 9. Some of you were saying it's actually Nets week, Josh. It's Clippers week. Monday 12, Tuesday 4, Wednesday 9, Thursday 5, Friday 10. Now, in the previous shows, when I would do this, I would call 10 a non-streaming day. But I've been doing more work and more research on this throughout the season, and I've changed my decision on this. I think that 10 and below is a streaming day, especially if you have got a 10 starters and 3 bench setup. Then that is a streaming day usually. 10 and 4, it's usually a streaming day as well. So it's borderline. It's probably 60-40, which I think we're talking majority there. So we're going to do 10s as streaming days. 8 on Saturday and 8 on Sunday. The other thing that I'll hear people talk about, they go, yeah, because you want the teams that play on the Tuesday and Thursday. No, you don't. I mean, you do, but you don't, because they don't matter that much. There's no real difference to me in a 5-game Thursday, 8-game Saturday, 8-game Sunday, 9-game Wednesday. For nearly 99% of you, I know people go, well, you want the lower volume days, and we have been conditioned for this, and there's been a lot of talk about this, and I have been trying to slowly change the thought around this. Of this idea that if you have, it needs to be 4 games or 5 to be considered a streaming day, garbage. I just don't agree with that because, again, if you look at your roster, I'm going to be very, very certain that on Saturday you will have a streaming slot. Sunday, you'll have a streaming slot. Wednesday, you'll have a streaming slot. Tuesday, you will have one. Thursday, you will have one. The debatable one will be Friday. And again, my research suggests that you probably will in probably at least half the cases, a little bit over half. So a low volume Tuesday, Thursday, it's good in theory. It's garbage in practice. It doesn't mean anything. It's not a benefit to you. The Saturday, Sunday back-to-back is the same value as a Tuesday, Thursday low volume streamer. It's the same. Okay? Again, just trying to dispel myths or things that get thrown around or the things that I see of people talking about often because of just ways that we've discussed this stuff in the past. Let's take a look at some other or how the week plays out, because this is the week now where we've got a 5-game team. It's the Brooklyn Nets. We've spoken about this nearly all season. We were supposed to have actually the Wizards with a 5-game week this week, but rescheduling due to the incidents earlier in the season where there was some weather-based stuff, the fires, plus some other games that need to be rescheduled, they don't. So it's just the Nets with 5 games. But like I've said a few times already on social media and on the show, 5-game week is great, but one is on a 12-game Monday. So if you're looking at Keon Johnson, Zaire Williams, Trendon Watford, Noah Clowney, Dayron Sharp, would you play them on Monday? And if the answer is no, then they have a 4-game week, not a 5. Okay? That is important. Now, if if you've got 10 starters only on Monday, if you've only got 10 guys, so if you added a net, that'd be your 11th guy, that's probably useful because in all likelihood, one of the 10 guys will get an injury and you'll be able to slot the 11th guy in. But if you've already got 11 players active on your roster for Monday, adding a 12th guy to sit there and do nothing is pointless. We've got 20 teams that play 4 games this week, so it's a heavy week. Heavy. Atlanta, Boston, Charlotte, Dallas, Denver, Houston, Indiana, the Clippers, the Lakers, Memphis, Miami, Milwaukee, Oklahoma City, Orlando, Philadelphia, Phoenix, San Antonio, Toronto, Utah, and Washington. All 4 games. And that leaves us with 9 teams that play 3 games. That, obviously, is low. Because in the previous weeks, we've been doing 18-12 splits. This week, we've got a 1, 20, and 9 split. So that is it's a difference. It is a difference without any question at all. So, did I mention the teams? Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, Golden State, Minnesota, New Orleans, New York, Portland, and Sacramento. We're going to come back, look at stream zones, schedule quirks, streaming plans, weekly leagues as well. But today's episode, it is brought to you by the legends over at DoorDash. And you know, NBA fans, that when they swoosh, you save. Yeah, thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player, and we've got a lot of these recently, drops 50 or more points like Jimmy Harden last week, you get a huge deal the next day. When any player in an NBA regular season game this season scores 50 or more during the game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. Whatever food it is you're looking for. Wings, pizzas, burgers, chips, fries, burritos, what else? Sushi, ramen. I don't care. Whatever you want to get, it is all there. Watch party, individual, bed shoveling. Whatever it is you're looking to do, you can get that all at 50% off. So sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders of participating merchants. You must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. All right. Let's talk about the stream zone now. I think that's probably the right time. So let's get to the quality games. Let's talk about the quality games set up for the week. Now, as you're aware, we've spoken about a little bit about this already, that basically we're looking at every day that's not Monday as a streaming day. Now, Friday with 10 games is a little bit iffy. It is a little iffy on Friday. But I think, again, for most of us, that'll be okay to do. And even if you have, like, you look at Friday and you go, I've got 10 players, I think the most you'll have is 10, meaning that you probably can stream because odds are one of the 10 will be out on that day and you can stream in. So I think we'll be okay on that Friday. There are 3 teams that play 4 quality games. One of them are your 5-game legends, the Brooklyn Nets. So again, they don't have a bad schedule, but the 5 games is probably really 4 usable games. The problem is going to be that they are a team that obviously is sort of should be tanking and has already started with Cam Johnson this weekend with a rest. They've got Cam Thomas returning from injury. They've got Nick Claxton, Cam Johnson, and Noah Clowney returning from injury. Do any of those 4 players play all 5 games? I'd suggest not. When they play, no idea. Like if they sit on Monday, that's a W. You gain an extra game. But what if Cam Thomas sits Tuesday and Saturday? You get 3 games out of him. What if Cam Johnson is the same? Or D'Angelo Russell, the other one. There's almost no way that Thomas and Russell are playing back-to-backs. And Johnson, debatable. Claxton probably sits 1. Clowney, off a significant ankle injury, probably plays 3 games. But I don't know when. And, like, who knows? Like, honestly, I have no idea. So it is possible that, like, Clowney plays Monday, sits Tuesday, plays Thursday, plays Friday, plays Saturday, sits Sunday, and you get actually 2 games out of him. That's the right number? Yeah, 2 games. Look, it is for a 5-game week, you could play someone like Noah Clowney twice. Now, obviously, like a Cam Thomas or D'Angelo Russell, or maybe even not Russell, Claxton or Johnson, if they were playing on Monday, you'd start them anyway, so you'd get 3 out of them. But be careful of it. The other 2 teams are more interesting to me. That's the Clippers and the Bucks. This is where we start Clippers week. Because they play 4 quality games, and they don't play Monday. So when we're talking about the value of them and the other 20 teams, the other 18 teams that play 4 games, those 2 stand atop. Because you can use them 4 times during the week. Now, for your top-end guys, different story. That's whatever. That doesn't matter. You're starting them on Monday. But your fringies, your Chris Dunns, your Nick Batum, who went crazy, Derek Jones, Bogdanovic, Kyle Kuzma, Torian Prince, Gary Trent, Big Boom AJ Green, maybe Kevin Porter in deep leagues. You're talking about getting 4 games in from them. There are 5 teams who played 2 quality games. Chicago, Golden State, the Knicks, Portland, and the Kings. Very interesting names there. People have been interested in Zach Collins, and Vooch still hasn't returned. But what if you can only play Collins twice next week, and Vooch returns anyway? Is that worth a hold? Probably not. The Warriors, Moses Moody, even Brandon Pajemski, Buddy Hield. Honestly, is Draymond worth holding? 2 games. The Knicks, yeah, we know Jalen Brunson's out for a long time. At least 2 weeks. I'm going to think more than that. But is 2 games of Juice McBride worth it? Probably not for a lot of you. Not for all of you. For a lot of you, it would be like, I don't know if that's going to be worth it. Portland. This is where we get to the stage of, do I bother holding on to Donovan Clingan? What do I do with Shaden Sharp? Scoot Henderson? Jeremy Grant, easy drop. Sacramento. Keon Ellis. Valanciunas, you probably do hold, but barely. Is Keegan Murray a 2-game hold? Probably not. But all of this is going to be very specific to you. Because you can look at all that. They all have 2 quality games, but if you look at your lineup on Monday and they'd actually be one of your starters, then they're not a 2-game week either. They're a 3-game week. And it becomes a different story. So I'm trying to provide you the information as best I can, but you've got to be able to twist it into your league. I am not here to hold you. I'm not here to hold your hand and give you distinct moves for your league on the nose. I cannot do that. It is actually impossible. And if you're following a show like this or another show, believing that the information that is provided is specifically tailored to your league, I'm sorry, you are wrong. That is wrong, and that will actually cause more problems than solutions that it solves. So again, part of my idea in this show is not to tell you, this is him and this is not him and blah, I'm not doing any of that. It's about how to approach it, how to find a process, how to take information and twist it into the formats and the league and your particular individual settings right at this time. That's, I think, the best way to do it. Because I don't want this to be a hand-holding exercise. I want this to be a show where it's fun, it's entertaining, it's informative. We give opinions and you can agree or disagree with it, but also just the machinations of the way that things work to get better results. But you have to be able to apply it because it just doesn't work with me telling you. Now, I'm going to try and tell you some things, but again, there'll always be little nuances of the way that you approach it in your particular league. All right, let's get into. Actually, we'll come back and we'll talk about some streaming plans in a second. Today's episode, though, is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, and it is time for March Madness. And FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on that action like never before. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That is $200 extra bucks to use on everything. Buzzer beaters, Cinderella stories, and even you can bet on who's going to be cutting down the nets. You can go and check out who you think the favorite is. Is that where to go? You're going to put some money on some underdogs, the individual matchups once the tournament's announced. All that stuff is all available over on FanDuel. So go to FanDuel.com and get in on all of the college hoops action all tournament long. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. Now, we're going to talk about the way that we can try and manipulate this schedule. Actually, no, we won't do that yet. What we'll first get into is talking about some quirks in the NBA schedule for this week. What are some little things that we just need to pay attention to? Because we're not always going to hit all these things all the time. Minnesota are a 3-game team, but they do not start until Wednesday. So you've got 2 days off at the start of the week with the Timberwolves that don't play. The Sacramento Kings, on the other hand, are a 3-game team, and they finish on Friday. They don't have a game on the weekend. So vastly different schedules here. There is one team who has got a big gap this week, and that is Portland. They have 3 days off between Thursday and Saturday. That means that between Tuesday and Saturday, the Blazers have 1 game. We already talked about them being a 2 quality game team as well, meaning that your Klingons, Scoots, Shaden, Grant, maybe Avdia, maybe Simons, they become expendable-ish. Because again, you are in the playoffs. You are in the second last week in some leagues. Do you want a situation in the middle of the week where one of your slots plays 1 game? For honestly, let's be fair, all of those names that I mentioned, what is their best case outcome? A top 70 player? Is it worth it? Probably not. For most of you, probably not is the answer. But again, you have to see how is your matchup going to look? Can you afford a gigantic hole, giggity, in the middle of your week like that? Because that is sizable. That is a big difference. Let's get streaming. Let's talk Stream Zone. And I'm going to do it for 3 moves, 4 moves, and 7 moves. And I want to be a little bit more deliberate with this. Because there's no point me giving you these elaborate stream plans when I don't think the benefit is there. So if you've got 3 moves for the week, right, there are 2 different ways that you can do this. You can get a 2 quality game team and turn it into 6 games played. But there is a caveat. You got to start with a clipper. Because the way the NBA schedule works this week is very weird. We have got a very busy week, but on Tuesday, Wednesday, there's one team playing a Tuesday, Wednesday back-to-back, the Clippers. On Wednesday, Thursday, there are no back-to-backs. So we start our streaming week with 1 back-to-back across 2 days. So we are incredibly limited. Thursday, Friday, lots of them. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, plenty. Monday, Tuesday, lots. But also, doesn't matter because you've got 12 games on Monday, so you don't even get the first half of that back-to-back in. So to turn 2 games with 3 moves into 6 games, two quality games into 6, you got to be able to start with a clipper. And the teams that we're talking about there, so if you've got a fringe Bulls, Warriors, Knicks, Blazer, or King player, and we'll talk about some names of them later on, you can drop one of those guys and turn it into 6 moves, providing with 6 games, provided you have 3 moves and you start with a clipper, because they are the Tuesday, Wednesday back-to-back team. So, Chris Dunn. Yeah? Well, we know Harden, Kawhi, by the way, who won't play both of those games. Ben Simmons is going to be out. He won't play both of them. Derek Jones probably will, but Bogdanovic, done. Nick Batum, who went crazy in that last game, they're 3 options that are going to be providing you with value across that time frame that literally nobody else in the league does. And while you might say, how exciting is it for me to have 2 games of Nick Batum? Well, I don't know. He played 35 minutes last game and was great. Will he do that again? And this is going to be with Kawhi resting here. Will he play 50? Norman Powell, I just don't know. I don't think he's not going to be back. So we don't have to worry too much about that. So the other one there is Amir Coffey you can look at as well. Because Harden, Zubats, Kawhi, they're rostered anyway. So we're talking Coffey, Batum, Dunn, Jones, Bogdanovic as your options. Then you can drop one of those guys and turn them into a Lakers player. You can turn them into a Magic player. You can turn them into a Kings player. That gives you 2 more games on the Thursday, Friday, back-to-back. Now, you could say I'm adding a Clippers guy who have got 4 games in 6 nights, and that's great. You've gotten 4 games there. But that means you've turned 2 games played into 4, and you've still got 2 moves left over. What's the point? Right, what's the point of that? If you want to go 2 to 6, you're going to go Clippers into Lakers, Magic, Kings, and then into Nets, Bucks, Thunder across the weekend. And that shows you when we talk about dropping a fringe bull, a fringe warrior, a blazer, a king. What's the other team? Knicks, I believe it is. If you're dropping one of those guys, and you say, well, I'm not really sure I want to drop Mikal Bridges. And yeah, that's an option. I'm not really sure I want to drop Mikal Bridges. What if I just get 3 times the volume in for him during the week? Because that's what that would be. If there's a different approach you can have here with this as well, if you don't want to target Tuesday, Wednesday Clippers. Now, the only way this works is if you have got one of these players that are disposable on your team. Someone from Cleveland, someone from Detroit, Indiana, New Orleans, Washington. And there are a lot of those guys. Bilal, Bub. Like if you've still got Rashawn Holmes or Chris Middleton, or you've got Matkovic or Olynyk, or in Indiana, you've got Mathurin or Nembhard or Neesmith, or in Detroit, you've got Beasley, or in Cleveland, you've got Jerome or Strus or someone else, Hunter, right? They all play on Tuesday, those teams, but then in the final 5 days of the week, they play 2 quality games. So they've got 3 games, 3 quality games, but after Tuesday, they've got 2. So therefore, you can use them on Tuesday if you've already got them on your roster. You drop them, then you can choose whoever you want from quite a busy Wednesday, do a single game stream on Wednesday, avoiding the chance to take do I want Amir Coffey? Is he worth it? You can get a better option in on Wednesday. Like, let's say Ty Jerome plus a Wednesday stream is probably going to be better than a back-to-back Amir Coffey. And then you move into the Thursday, Friday back-to-back, then into the Saturday, Sunday back-to-back. But of course, that only works if you've got one of those players already on your roster. Cleveland, Detroit, Indiana, New Orleans, Washington. And that ends up turning what would be, if you had held on to those Cleveland, Detroit, Indiana, New Orleans, Washingtons, they would have been 3 games for the week. You can turn that and double it into 6. It's not as good as turning 2 into 6, obviously, but it's turning 3 into 6. So it's a double volume period there. If for some reason you can't stream on that Friday, and I'm not going to do this for all of them, but just to give you an idea here, if the Mondays and Fridays are blocked from you, you can turn 2 quality games into 5. Which again is 2.5 times the volume. It's worth it. You do a single stream on Tuesday, you do a single stream on Wednesday, and then you choose a player from one of 4 teams on Thursday through to Sunday who play 3 games in 4 nights. The Nets, the Lakers, the Bucks, and the Magic. That's your 3 moves, turning 2 games, dropping one of Chicago, Golden State, New York, Portland, Sacramento into 5. That's enough. That's enough to make a difference. If you've got 4 moves, the default Yahoo scenario, once again, I don't really think that this week is a strong week to be looking. It's not terrible, but it's not the strongest week to be looking at getting in, using 2 slots, although it's a bit easier this week. So we're gonna start just by looking at if we've got 1 slot for the week. There are 2 ways to do this. If you've got those, you're just making an ad on Tuesday and you're dropping one of those 2-game teams, you can turn 2 into 6. The same way that we talked about with the 3 moves, but in this one, you don't have to rely on a clipper. You can go Tuesday single stream, Wednesday single stream, Thursday, Friday back-to-back, Saturday, Sunday back-to-back. 4 moves, 6 games, turning 2 into 6, tripling the volume, bang, done. If you've got one of those Cleveland, Detroit, Indiana, New Orleans, Washingtons. You can hold them on Tuesday. You drop them. You add a single game Wednesday. Then you go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You've turned 3 games into 6. It's a doubling. It's okay. So that means that gives us 10 different teams: Chicago, Golden State, New York, Portland, Sacramento, Cleveland, Detroit, Indiana, New Orleans, Washington. 10 different teams that if one of your worst 3 players comes from one of those 10 teams, you've got an ability to go from 2 to 6 or from 3 to 6. It's either doubling or tripling the volume if one of your worst players comes from any of those 10 teams that I mentioned. If you're in a situation with 4 moves where you can't stream on Friday, so the Monday and Friday are blocked, the best you can really do here is go 2 into 5. Still pretty strong. 5 is the most games you'd be able to get, and you can turn a 2 game into it. You do a single stream Tuesday, a single stream Wednesday. You got a plethora of teams playing the Thursday, Saturday pseudo back-to-back, skipping Friday. Brooklyn, Chicago, Detroit, Golden State, Houston, Milwaukee, New Orleans, Washington, and then you do a Sunday single stream. That gives you 2 games into 5. Pretty good W. Pretty good W. It's still, again, not as good as 2 into 6. Probably better than 3 into 6, honestly. And that is assuming, again, that Friday is fully booked out. 2 into 5, not bad. It's a +3. It's not bad. Ideally, we want +4, but +3 is not bad. If you use 2 slots, there is a way to get a +6 this week. And in other weeks, it hasn't really been as easy to do that. So there is some merit in using 2 slots in a 4-move week this week. The way it works, though, is that one of your slots where you're dropping one of those teams that I mentioned, Chicago, Golden State, Knicks, Portland, Sacramento, because they've got the 2 quality games. If you drop one of those guys, right, you can turn one of those players into a Brooklyn Net, a Clipper, or a Buck. They've got 4 games from Tuesday to Sunday. So you're turning 2 into 4 right there. Easy. 2 into 4. Then what you can do, again, this is where it becomes Clippers week. If you've got a second one of those players from any of those 5 teams, Chicago, Golden State, New York, Portland, Sacramento, you can drop them, get a Tuesday, Wednesday Clipper back-to-back. You can then go a Thursday, Friday Laker, Magic, Sacramento back-to-back. Then you can go Saturday, Sunday Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Oklahoma City back-to-back. Meaning that in each of these slots, you would have had, if you kept those guys from those 5 teams, you would have had 4 games total, but you turn 1 slot into 4, 1 slot into 6. You use 1 move on 1 slot, 3 moves on the other, and you can get it up to 10. Now, there are certain spots you might be able to get that up to 11. It is hard. It is hard to do that, and it's going to require very, very specific scenarios. It would require you having already on your roster 2 Clippers players. And if you've got 2 Clippers players on your roster, then you get the Tuesday, Wednesday already. And you get that in 2 slots. And then you've got 4 days left with 4 moves. So 2 moves in each of those slots. You go back to back, back to back. The problem with that is that Clipper player that was on your roster was already going to give you 4 games and not 2. So those 2 slots would have given you 8 games. And yes, you've turned those into 12, but 8 to 12, not that big of a W, is it? So you got 12 games. But again, getting bulk games is good, right? That's important. But it's the difference. 4 games into 10 is a better result than taking 8 into 12. Because you added 6 extra games. You've added 6. Again, getting 12 games is good. But it's not the overall better squeeze that you've had. I guess the debate here is, and I understand this part of it, is, and where we can look at this, is that getting 12 games just means, again, you've got extra games. That's 12 games in, not a problem. But it's still only +4 from where you were before. So what is the correct answer there? Contrary to how it might seem, the correct answer is to turn the 4 into 10. Just some quick sort of back of the envelope, however you want to say it, maths with a plural S at the end. If your team, say for example, you looked at it and you had 40 games played for the week, okay? You had 40 games played for the week on your team. That was made up with 2 of those players who played 2 quality games. So if you take them away, you're down to 36. We can maximize those slots into 10. So we add 10 back on. We've had 46 games played for the week. So that's example 1. So we've taken 40 to 46. W. If we're in a situation where we've got 40 games and 2 of our players are Clippers players, which again, you can max out games by having them. But if you just held on to those players there, it leaves you in a situation. So you got the Clippers on Tuesday, Wednesday, then they're already on your roster, so you haven't used a move yet. So they're there, but they're part of your original 40 if they were on your roster. Then if you move on from them after Wednesday, you get 4 games between Thursday to Sunday per slot. But if you had held the Clippers, you would have had 2 games per slot. So that's 4 games turned into 8, which is only a +4. That's not as useful. So you've lost from the 40 games that you would have played if you just held on to them. You take the 4 games with the Clippers you lose, down to 36, you add 8, you go to 44. Not as good. And again, all of this it's all very much dependent on the individual spot and where you sit, but realistically, we want to try and plus as many as possible. We want to try and get we plus as many, max out our pluses. And that's what we're doing with that. If you've got 7 moves, the default on ESPN, I don't think that there is a gigantic advantage in using 3 slots this week. I think you're going to have more value in getting the 7 moves into 2 slots, because the 3 is going to require heavy reliance on having Clippers. So in this one, in slot 1, you can turn 4 games into 12 by dropping one of those 5 guys or 5 teams: Chicago, Golden State, New York, Portland, Sacramento. You can drop one of them, and you can add it in slot 1 into a Tuesday, Wednesday Clipper back-to-back. So Bogdan, Bogdanovic, Chris Dunn, Nico, Batum, very hot commodities. Turning it into a Thursday, Friday back-to-back and a Saturday, Sunday back-to-back. So that is 6 games with 3 moves in 1 slot. Then you've got your 4 other moves for your second slot. So you're dropping another 2 quality game team, and you're going Tuesday single stream, Wednesday single stream, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Maxing out. So basically you're turning 2 slots, which would have been 4 games, into 6 games each slot. So you turn 4 into 12. Obviously, that's a +8. So W move with your 7 moves, that gives you pretty good results. If you do it with the 3 moves, it gets a little, it gets very heavily reliant upon a specific scenario where you've already got 2 fringe Clippers on your team already, and you can hold them Tuesday, Wednesday, max out other slots and get more games in and get up to 16 games in through the 3 slots. But again, realistically, you had the Clippers there already and they were already playing 4 games in those positions. And that's why this week is so weird, because we've got a 5-game team but play one on a high volume day, and we've got 1 back-to-back only between Tuesday and Thursday. And it's only the Clippers who have got it, making everything very dependent on how we view those Clippers players. So I think a better move this week is 7 moves, is using 2 slots, dropping a 2 quality game team, turning both slots into 6s, giving you a +8 for the week. And that uses all 7 of your moves. You get a large selection of teams on these days. Big W, I think. That's how I see the best way for that to play out. We're going to come back and talk about some weekly league stuff, but I just want to go into one more thing here in terms of the stream zone and who are the guys that we can consider droppable players from those 5 teams that I mentioned, the ones I'm going to put into my streaming study. So for Chicago, Lonzo Ball, Matas Buzelis, and Zach Collins. And honestly, when I ran the numbers, 2 games of Vooch and maybe even 2 games of Kobe White, borderline. I would hold them, but borderline. For the Warriors, John Kuminga, Moses Moody, Draymond Green, throw Brandon Pajemski in there as well. In fact, is he on the next slide? He might be. No, he's not, but he's another one there as well. For the Knicks, Juice McBride, Mikal Bridges. Yes, they can be expendable. For the Blazers, Tamani Kamara, Shaden Sharp, Scoot Henderson, Jeremy Grant, Donovan Clingan. And for Sacramento, Keon Ellis and Keegan Murray. Not telling you to drop these players. I'm telling you that I'm going to be assessing the results of dropping these players, basing it on, again, what would happen if we drop those guys and maxed out our games played through the different slots and how our results would look. That's the players that we're looking at. The other 5 teams, Cleveland, Detroit, Indiana, New Orleans, and Washington, the ones that played Tuesday, and then they've got 2 games after that, you don't get as good a result from doing that because, again, we're talking about you're just not maxing your games played as much. But we've already gone through the names there. Malik Beasley, Max Strus, Ty Jerome, DeAndre Hunter, Mathurin Nembhard, Neesmith, Olenek, McCullum, Makovic, Misi, then Carrington, Saar, Koulibaly in Washington. But these are the major ones that I wanted to discuss. Now, the next thing I want to go into now, the last thing I want to go into is talking about weekly leagues, because all of this is for daily changes leagues. If you're in weekly leagues, we got to you eventually. Who are some ads that you would add and you would probably start for the week? And there are some interesting names on this list. Dayron Sharp with 5 games. I know he hasn't been playing well at all, but there is a chance of a 30-minute game during the week. And his last 2 games have been really bad, and he's usually much better than that in 18 minutes. But he's worth it. Chris Dunn. Yep, doesn't score much, but does the other stuff. Keyshawn George. See, the difference with what we talked about there with the Wizards and the Pacers as well is that they are both teams, the Wizards and the Pacers, that play 4 games for the week, but they play Monday, Tuesday back-to-back. So Monday, would you use them? Tuesday, you can use them on that game, and then there's only 2 games in the final 5 days of the week. So for a weekly league, getting 4 games out of a Wizards guy that you would start is very, very good. In a head-to-head daily changes league, the value of those players is less because after Tuesday, they've only got 2 games left. And you can max that roster slot into 6 games. Yeah, we're Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. No, 5. You can turn 2 games into 5 to end the week. And you get their game on Tuesday as well. So you can turn their slot of 2 games, their slot of 3 games into 6. What about some players that you might consider startable for the week, but I'm not sure you should? Chet Holmgren. Not sure I would start him. Why is that? Well, the Thunder play on Monday, that's okay, but they end the week with a Saturday, Sunday back-to-back. The problem also with Chet there is the Thunder have a Sunday, Monday back-to-back. So what if Chet sits on Monday and then sits the Saturday, Sunday back-to-back, one of those? 2 games. Not sure Chet with 2 games, who's already missing non-back-to-backs, is going to be worth it. I don't think I'd do it. Cam Thomas. You could get 3 games from him this week. You could also get him playing, 3 games. You get 3 games. Not sure that's enough. DiVincenzo with 3. Mikal Bridges with 3. D'Angelo Russell with probably 3. And Ty Jerome with 3. They're guys who have been providing value in lots of different areas, but with 3 games on and only 9 teams playing 3 games this week, I am not sure that is going to make it worth it, to be brutally honest with you. Not that that's really that brutally honest, it's just telling what I think. And that, on National Meatball Day, is the end of a preview show. And I understand this is, again, it's a little bit different. There was some stuff that sometimes can sound complicated to me. But realistically, we want to be dropping one of the 2 quality game teams, and we want to max out those spots. Whether you've got 3 moves, 4 moves, 7 moves. I think that this week we can do a 2-slot, 4-move stream. I don't think we should do a 3-slot, 7-move stream. And if you've got 3 moves, you're doing 1. If you've got 5 moves, and 6, you do 2 slots as well. And a lot of it is going to base on whether you can get a clipper that you'd like on Tuesday or Wednesday. Dunn, Bogdanovic, and then next level down, Batum, Coffee. Because you want to hit the Tuesday, Wednesday back-to-back, because you know there's no Wednesday, Thursday back-to-back. So that's going to be the key for this week. Good luck. Plan out how your roster looks and how your week looks and how you can max out the games. You want to turn 2 into 6 or 2 into 5 for the final 6 days of the week, depending on the amount of moves that you've got. All right. I hope that was useful. I hope it wasn't confusing. I hope it probably was too robust. Sorry. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.